our Thursday evening prayer sessions go online, and we're getting the lighting and all of those equipment there. And so that will be our first toe in the water.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else? Maybe some updates on how they're going?
Yeah, at Grace Anglican in Carlsbad, we got online the very first week we were shuttered, and it's been going pretty well. It's clear that Zoom has upped its game quite a bit since we started, and so that's good. The one thing that I hope you can address is when we embed music, like YouTube videos in PowerPoint, what's the best way to get good sound fidelity going out to people who are watching?
Got it. Make a note of that. Okay. What else?
We've been online since the beginning too. And we're mostly enjoying it. I don't find it that difficult to do the Sunday service. I'd like to make it reach a little wider, but we've also been using Zoom every morning to do morning prayer. And that's just a fellowship opportunity, and it turned into a Bible study, and that's really kind of the booming business going on for us. It's great. I don't know what we can add to it. It's going well. It's tiring for me though. It's hard to stare at a screen forever and ever.
It is. It's really hard trying to particularly preach to a dot, right?
Yeah.
Because I love the audience and the feedback and even the courtesy laugh when it's probably not a joke, but at least you can count on some type of courtesy laugh, right? So it's a good challenge. Am I back? I was frozen for a second.
Yeah. Bill Gander, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Bill.
Thank you. We had a lot of static this past Sunday, and it really intruded on the effectiveness of the Facebook transmission that we were doing. I am now moving to a different church starting this Sunday, and I know Christ the King was really struggling. They have tried mics plugged into the lightning input of the iPhone, and then they tried to use the speakers from the church, but to be close enough to the altar area meant that the speakers were almost behind the camera, which was not helpful at all. And this week I'm moving to a new format. They're going to be using Zoom. And so I'm very interested in what we left off with last week, which was the combination of a Zoom meeting that was then translated to iPhone, especially because then we can invite people in the open on Facebook. Does that make sense? I can't hear you.
It does. Sorry, I was muted. One of the things that we'll be talking about today is preventing Zoom bombings, and that's unfortunately has become an occurrence, particularly at churches. There have been several instances of folks jumping in. So we're going to talk today as we talk about how to build an online community, some practical tools on how we can prevent that going forward. One more. Any other, maybe something surprising or something that's been working particularly well, or a challenge that you have that we can address this week?
So I've been, I do a monthly gathering for Beth Messiah, and I did a Seder on Zoom. It worked fine. I'm looking to a Shavuot, probably Erev Shabbat, either virtual dinner like we did with the Seder or evening prayer, Messianic evening prayer service. I'm feeling comfortable with Zoom. What I'm struggling with is I'm trying to post a video of myself on Facebook, and it seems to disappear, and maybe the sound doesn't show up. And I don't know if this is the forum for that. Maybe you can give me some coaching separately. But anyway, that's
Sure.
yeah, that's my challenge at the moment. So.
So I think we definitely, I'd love to talk with you offline and just kind of work through your flow and see if there's some suggestions, Pastor Joyce, on what we can do to kind of help make that. So yeah, we'll set that up afterwards. No problem. Well, so tonight, what I was thinking through is we could go through, and I just put some thoughts together kind of based on really looking at building community and making disciples through really, there's three main platforms I'd recommend. So the first is Facebook. It's because there's a lot of native community building type of options baked into Facebook already. And I'm going to tell you some really good hints on where to go for even better, more detailed, like step by step. This is how you do it. The other thing is we're going to look at, we'll mention briefly, is the new groups functionality within Instant Messenger. And so that's a really useful tool as well. And then finally, we're going to talk about Zoom. And so we'll go through, pulled some really practical things on Zoom. And so let's take a look. And of course, if you have any questions as we go along, just stop me. I'm going to pause, throughout just to make sure that we can chat and have any questions from there. So you guys all see the PowerPoint? Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay. So, one of the questions that we really need to ask is what kind of community do we actually want to build? I love this picture because it just made me kind of laugh. Like, we like you too, like we don't just want you here, but we like you. And I feel like that's so is the pulse and the heart of the church, right? We want to build a community where people do feel welcomed and loved and cared for. But it's important as we engage in digital ministry online to remember that this is social media, not broadcast media. It's very, very easy for us to get into broadcast media. And, we're just talking to and sharing to, and it's a constant communication out. But social media by its very nature is meant to be participatory, and it's meant to be a two-way communication. And that's where I can remember when we first did Facebook Live for Winchester, some of the folks were like, why are you saying hi to people in the chat room? What, in the messages, why do we have that? Can we just disable that? Can we just turn that off? And so, well, I mean, we could just say, please don't talk, but part of this is that experience of engaging. And so it does take a little bit of getting used to, and it is different. But it's, through those conversations, that's actually how we build community. And so it's really important when we talk about Facebook to understand the real differences between your page and your group. Now, I'll send this to Jenna as soon as we're done. And if you click on this link, this will actually open up the Facebook toolkit that they have for churches. So they've created an entire toolkit of recommended resources for churches. And it's got step-by-step instructions. How do I start a secret group, a private group, a social group? How do I link the group to my page? How do, step-by-step instruction. So if you click that, it'll take you to it. And I'm trying to think if I had it pulled up already. Yes, this is, no. Anyways, so on the Facebook page, sorry, I just realized that you're not seeing what I'm seeing. My apology, gang. Here we go. So on the Faith on Facebook, there's a resource hub, and that resource hub has all kinds of information, and including there's a really great practical guide that they've put together. And so you can find all kinds of different articles and how-tos and resources specifically, geared towards the faith community from Facebook. And then there's also examples and stories from other organizations that just explain kind of how they use it. There's also articles on admins. So whether you're a new admin or growing, or how do you recruit and deal with some conflict. So there's some really helpful guidelines and resources on this page, and so all of that's accessible there through the link. And so I wanted to make sure that you guys had that first and foremost before we get too much further into the discussion. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. So, the difference between the page and the group, the page I would say is the front door or the front walkway up to your house. And your group, your public community group, is like your living room. So just how you'd want the front of your house to be welcoming and inviting, you want the page, your Facebook page, to be welcoming and inviting. And without stepping too much, so there are some pages that, I'm not talking a church page, I'm just talking like there's a difference between a group and an official page. So we have group pages that appear to be representing, say, like, the Anglican Church in North America, and then there's the actual ACNA page. And so sometimes it's really clear to distinguish those two. So the things that appear on the ACNA page are officially from the province, and the things on the group page and some of those discussions clearly are not from the province, but are of people in the province. So depends on how you want to structure it. Some churches have decided to just keep it the same name. Here's our page, here's our group. Others have decided to make different groups for different ministries. So your youth may have their own group, and the look and feel of that group page may be dramatically different. Your men may have their own group, or your women may have their own group, or your intercessory prayer team may have their own group. But they're all linked back to your page. So we want to make sure that you have that. Now, going a bit deeper, there's different kinds of groups. There's community group that's public. Everybody can see not only who the admins are, but they can also see who's the members in that group. Then you have a private group, and that's kind of like now we've moved from the living room into the kitchen. So I love entertaining and cooking. That's kind of how I relax. I normally cook here for our family. That's kind of my chore. You're always welcome to the table, but very few people am I comfortable, hang out next to the stove while I'm cooking, right? So it's a little bit more of an intimate conversation. This is really great for groups. We'll talk about that. And then there's the secret groups, and those groups are the private groups. Sorry, you can actually tell who the admins are, but you can't tell who the members are. So the admins are public, but everybody else is private. The secret groups, you can't even tell that the group's there. It doesn't exist. It's not publicly noticeable. You can't find it anywhere. It is truly just that. It's a secret group. So, like I said, the page is really the front yard. Your official home page, it's very similar to your personal profile page. Functions and the content as the same stuff you would on your Facebook page. The post will show up in the newsfeed, but keep in mind with the algorithm of Facebook, only about 3% of the people who like your church's page will actually ever see content. Facebook makes money by giving you the privilege of paying to have your content seen by more people who actually like you. Sounds totally crazy, but that's actually how they make money. And so you have to remember that just because you post something on Facebook doesn't actually mean everyone in your church saw it. And I can't tell you how many times we've had folks that maybe their feelings have gotten hurt because they got left out, or they didn't know something had happened. And the comment was, well, we posted it on Facebook. Didn't you see it? Well, no, they probably didn't see it, because the algorithm of Facebook, unless they are going to your Facebook page every single day, the likelihood is, there's a 10% chance maybe that they might scroll through it and see it, or see it liked on one of their friends' pages. So you have to really think through and remember, even though we're going to spend time posting this content, the only surefire way to make sure that people get noticed, or notified about that content is by putting it in a group. Now, the group, like I said, it's like your living room. It's really not a good option for your general Facebook presence. This is, think of this is really where you want to get into the more programmatic things. It's great because you do have that privacy in the walled off areas to do a small group. You can even build out a 8-week course. So you could do a Bible study, you could do catechism, and there's a lot of different things that you could do inside natively within a Facebook group. It's great to do pics and videos that really are to all the members and really only the members, right? So they'll get that notification. The reason is the algorithm for a group page is the same Facebook algorithm as your spouse, children, and very close personal friends. It's really kind of crazy, but like you always see your spouse or your kids or, like your very, very, very close best friends. You'll always see their content every time you scroll through. Well, if you join a group, you'll see that content, which becomes a bit problematic when you've joined 20 groups, but because all you see is this different content. You're always getting notifications all the time. But it is really great because when you need to notify people of volunteers or members of updates of information or, when plans change on the dime, the Facebook group is a great place to do that. Now, Facebook Live video into a group is also really great for that midweek or that morning or evening prayer, that weekly devotional or monthly devotional. That's a great place to park that video. And when you go live, it actually pushes the notification to all the members of the group. So instead of slow dripping to that 3% audience and then increasing incrementally over a period of 20 or 30 minutes, it'll send a push notification to all the members of that group. Hey, Pastor Joyce has just gone live. Be sure to check out, jump over to the group and take a look at what she's doing. So it's a great opportunity to have a higher level of engagement. Now, I like to say that the public group is the digital fellowship hall, right? It's open discourse. It's the place where communication can happen. It's the digital coffee hour. It's a great place to do the Cox and the daily office videos and prayers. We talked about the Facebook Live. I'm a big fan of the class functionality. It does take a little bit to get used to, but again, there's tutorials on the community page the link that I sent. It's really a great place to begin in that environment because instead of going to Instant Messenger and WhatsApp and Zoom and the website, you can kind of do everything in one platform. So when we talk about good, better, best, if you have a lot of budget to do a stream platform, if you are particularly worried about high communication and wanting to make sure that, you're using a lot of video or a lot of pictures, Facebook group is really the one place that I would recommend. That's the best option for you, simply because of all the tools that are in and it's cost effective. It is a bit more of, I guess it takes a bit more time to do, but it actually is really, really cost effective for you. Now, the one thing that I would also caution is because it is public, you want to be cautious with things like prayer requests, right? Because if people are just putting it out there, it is for everybody to see. So just as we'd have some same protocols in place with the physical church, if it wouldn't appear on the church bulletin, it probably shouldn't appear on Facebook. And sometimes you may actually have to remind that because we actually had to move prayer requests from the Facebook page to a private email chain and say, hold on, we have our intercessors in the church. Let's just keep that to the email as opposed to, hey, intercessors, please pray for. And the argument was, well, don't you feel like we're not giving people the opportunity to pray? And I said, no, there's absolutely, that's a valid point. However, some of the information is really personal and it's not meant for public distribution. So it's just not appropriate to have it on a public platform. So those are things to consider. Now, a private group is really for deeper talk. This is great for recovery ministry, for men's ministry, accountability groups, particularly when I was working with a lot of college kids and we would need to have a guys' college group where we were talking about stuff that college guys are dealing with. That's not the kind of stuff we want to necessarily do in an open forum anyways, but we could discuss that inside the context of a Facebook group. Usually you want to have at least 2 administrators. Why? Because if somebody's not available to approve or to moderate, you want to make sure you have somebody else who can do that. And once those groups are in, then the administrator can decide who gets into the group and who doesn't. So there's a lot of different aspects of that. Now, I don't know that there is a digital plan for how we navigate that, but I would always say, if it's a youth group, certainly the parents of every child that's the legal guardian should have access to that group as well as a member. So they can log in and see, hey, what are the kids talking about? What are the comments? That's something we just want to consider as well. So a lot of kids have their own Facebook accounts. They do their own thing. But I would really encourage, when it comes to youth, make sure that parents also have access to those accounts or those groups. Now, secret groups are entirely confidential, so people don't even know who's in there. They don't know who the admins are. They're not even publicly available or searchable on Facebook. So this is great for those real, very sensitive recovery groups or accountability groups or individual small groups. It's a safe space environment. They can really discuss very sensitive information and keep it safe. But you do want to have protocol in place for those groups. So I would also recommend that the rector be a member of any of those groups, just simply for an accountability's sake. It's very important that, particularly in light of all the situations that go on with church, just that there is an oversight. And if it's a different situations, obviously need to work. There needs to be somebody in church leadership who is a part of that group. That way, if there's anything of impropriety or accusations, you've got your bases covered. Okay, groups get some Facebook love. Really, really, really. It is a great way because the engagement is high, because the video boosts go out right away. You can always share from your group to your Facebook page, and you can share from your Facebook page to your group. So there are different ways to use video, whether it's short form or long form. And you want people engaged. You want people to come back. And so when it comes to the community, how you structure the group and how you communicate and how you foster could very well curate the feeling, essentially, of a normal Sunday experience, even though it's digital. So consider you have your community group, which is like the fellowship hall. And then you have your private groups. And your private groups would be like a men's group, a women's group, this home group, or that adult class, or the youth. And then if you had any other courses or groups that met, or celebrate recovery classes or things like that, that would meet midweek, those could be either private groups or secret groups, depending upon the coordination. So the hub, right, would be the general community group. Hey, the men's discipleship group is going to meet Wednesday. Here's the link. If you are part of the group, great. If you want to join the group, here's the administrator. Email us and let us know that you want to be a part of this group or request to join. Click here, and you can post those in very, very simply. Now, I want to say this. Don't forget that you don't own Facebook. I know this sounds really, really weird, but a lot of people get frustrated and they say, why can't I do this? Or why is Facebook blocking me? Some of you have commented about the bandwidth allocation. Well, post-Easter, what we have found is Facebook really ratcheted up the bandwidth for video during Easter because it was Easter. And then after Easter, they have actually dropped the bandwidth allocation for live video pretty dramatically. And so that's why a lot of the Facebook Live videos have become choppy or staticky, or they're not quite as crisp as they were when we first started all this. It's because the bandwidth that Facebook is having to pay for is skyrocketing right now because so many people are streaming at the same time. And so they're actually throttling back. In fact, we just tried to upload a video. We could not even upload a video into 720, which was pretty shocking, considering that we normally do stuff in 4K. So I think we were down to like 450 megabits to try to get the video in. So less than standard definition of video quality. Doesn't really matter in terms of communicating the gospel, but for us artsy production types, it's really a sad thing because we put all this effort into really good, high quality 4K, and then we can't, we've got to really, really compress it down to make it work. Don't forget to go live. Just because you have the group, it's a tool, but I'd really encourage you to go live on Facebook and share. Now, I do want to encourage you. You might need to go live if you're going to add other people in. Don't do it from your page, from your church page. Do it from your personal account. And here's why. If I try to go live from our page, depending on what kind of account you have, you may not be allowed to actually bring in any third parties to join your Facebook Live. As a page, they kind of restrict that type of communication. So I went live with a pastor from Turkey, and she has a tremendous online ministry on Facebook, dear friend of mine, but I couldn't get it out on our ministry page. I had to go to my personal account, and then I had to invite her from her personal account. And so that's how we were able to both do this prayer time together for Turkey live. And so you may need to experiment, but if you want to invite other people into your Facebook Live, and then once you do that, think through some other things that you can do live. Of course, daily office, weekly devotional, just we've talked about. Maybe having a deeper moment. If you have a deacon in the church, this is a great opportunity for some teaching experience for your deacon to kind of go in and expound a little bit on your homily. Maybe a behind the scenes, hey, just we're getting set up. We've got, here's we're getting ready for Sunday morning service. We can't wait to see you in half an hour. We're just getting things going. So how are you doing this morning? Hey, Joan. Hey, John, whatever. It's a great way to engage and actually start to draw people in and get them engaged and ready to go. One of the things that we could also do is I've seen folks do like a pre-service prayer or pre-service meeting on Facebook Live, which is great. It's a great opportunity to get people together. Encouraging people to read the collect of the day, doing Facebook Live, jumping in and out of that. So there's a lot of different ways to utilize the live functions. Okay, some best practices. And then we're going to pause after we get this, and we'll talk Facebook before we jump into LinkedIn. So, you want to encourage people to join the group, right? I mean, this sounds really kind of awkward, but when you have a live video, particularly if you're streaming it to your page, make sure to invite people to join our group and say, hey, we've got, Church of the Ascension community group. We'd love to have you join us and be a part of our church online. Make sure that you actually use language like join now, or, be participatory in your language. And then when you're live, encourage people to make sure that you join the group. And so just because they're watching it in the group, don't forget, you also have people who are watching it on the main page on Facebook. If you're using something like a streaming platform, then they may be watching it not just on Facebook, they may be watching it on your website or on YouTube, but you still want to funnel them back to the Facebook group. So anytime you go live, make sure that you're encouraging people to actually join your group. You want to be sure to have a comment moderator, and this person who is going to type in to the comments and say, hey, thanks so much. How can we pray for you today? Be sure to join our group. Be sure to connect with us for our digital coffee hour after service. If you need the LinkedIn, the Zoom link, email us at, whatever the email address is. That's how we do it instead of posting the Zoom link publicly. After the live stream ends, make sure you actually go back and reply to comments. This is where volunteers are great. It's not just about commenting during the initial live thread, but you want to go back and follow up because somebody may have watched it an hour later or 2 hours later. And because they're watching it as a live video or as a watch party, they're going to interact with it in real time, even though it's not live. And so there's been some tremendous follow-up ministries that we've done at Christ Church in Jerusalem after the service, actually. Some of our best comments and prayers that we've been engaging online have actually come hours after the live service. And so, be sure in your workflow, if you have a volunteer who's, responding live, maybe ask that volunteer later that night to jump back in again and just check through and engage. Make sure that there's no comment that's left unengaged. Even if it's a simple amen, just hit the like button or the care button, whatever it is now. And so make sure you do that. And then always make sure that you pin a post welcoming people, letting them know. You can also, remind them of the link to give online. And so, hey, join us in worshiping through giving. Here's the link. Click, to give right now. That's super easy to do inside of the group portal as well. Now, the real how to. So, you want to link the group or multiple groups again to your page. From your news feed, you can click pages on the left-hand side and then select the page that you want to join. And then, if it's not visible, you can go into the page management tab in your settings, and you can actually turn on which pages you want to make visible. Once you link the groups, then you want to make sure that, let's say you have a youth group, a women's group, and a men's group. Those groups need to be linked together with your page. And then once you've confirmed that, then you go live, and all those get pushed out to the top of the news feed. So, hey, this church has created this organization or this group, and the group icon between your live box will always be where you can kind of funnel and post things to your group pages. So as you are to do a post or an update, you can post it both to your wall, but also to those groups. Be sure that you actually put in some descriptions, put some welcome language on the group pages, let people know what to expect from the group. So nothing's more embarrassing than going into what you think is a community group or the men's group, and it's actually the women's prayer circle. I have done that before, and it was a bit awkward because I'm like, man, and I wasn't paying attention. I just got into the group and I thought, man, they are really sensitive men. Like God is moving because they're just so tender-hearted, and and then I realized I'm in the ladies group. Oops. Okay. I'm out of here. So just make it really, really clear, what the group is and what it's all about. So I want to pause there with Facebook before we jump into Zoom, and Zoom is great because we're on Zoom, so we can actually talk a little bit about that. But I want to pause there for some thoughts, comments, questions.
Bill here. You use the term,
Hi, Bill.
hi, you use the term your group, and I'm assuming you mean the main church page and not your personal Facebook information page.
Sorry, say that one more time, Bill. It froze up on my end. I'm sorry.
Sorry, you use the term your page, and I'm assuming you mean the church page.
So yes, when I say your page, I mean the church page. Now, when I said Facebook Live, what I did mean is you may need to do Facebook Live. If you want to invite other people onto the Facebook Live with you, that would probably need to come from your personal Facebook account.
All right. That's what I needed to make sure I understood. Okay.
Yeah. It's just because there are certain features that are turned on with a page versus a personal account. And one of the coolest features in the personal account is that I can invite up to 4 or 5 friends on a Facebook Live, and we can kind of turn Facebook into Zoom, essentially. But you can't do that from an organization page, only from a personal account. So that's where, I'll do that particularly when I work with ministries overseas and we're doing kind of a pray for the nation thing. So I'll have a couple of those pastors join me on my personal Facebook page, and then I share that to the ministry page. So it's kind of a workaround, but it works.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts, questions? How many of you are currently using a Facebook group right now? By show of hands. 1. Okay. So one of the things that I'd really encourage you to do is, this is a great way to also empower your lay leaders. And so particularly, ask them, if you have someone who's leading your women's ministry or your men's ministry or your prayer ministry, I would first ask them if they would find value in it. And typically what happens is some say no, and then some say yes. And then the ones that do, they actually start communicating. And then, it doesn't take long before people think, oh, that's kind of neat. Yeah, I want to do that. But I would really focus on the fellowship hall ministry model. So the community group as the big group that you all have, that's the common group for the church. And then you move from the public group to the private groups for your sub ministries. And that's also partly for just general best practices, but it's a great way to also segment and delegate and make sure that you're empowering your leaders accordingly.
If I might say again, we have a Friends of Resurrection group page, which is private. Prayer requests can go out there, but it also translates to their individual pages. So if you're accepted into the group, then you automatically get information from the Friends of page. And that's worked out really well.
Yeah.
Can you turn that into a worship page?
Absolutely.
Worship at whatever church.
Yeah, absolutely you can. Absolutely. And it's great to be able to post videos there. You can upload Vimeo or YouTube videos, and you could Facebook Live if you have worship going into that. And somebody had asked the question specifically about YouTube videos for Zoom. There's a number of different ways to go about it, but the easiest thing, I am a Mac user, so forgive me, but it is far easier to do that on a Mac than it is a PC because of the music processing and the audio processing. So I would be glad to look into a little bit deeper on some suggestions if you're a PC user, but for Mac, typically it's just set into my audio board setting, or you can even go through your YouTube settings into your Mac, and then it's putting it into the right input for the videos into Zoom. And so you would just do it. And there's a button in Zoom in particular. When you go to share your screen, there's a share computer sound. There's also an optimize screen share for video clip inside of Zoom. So when one of those two things are selected, then that actually will automatically do that. Then you have a couple of advanced features as well. So there is one that says music or computer sound only as an input. You also can input via your iPad or iPhone cable. If you're trying to input via AirPlay, honestly, I've never gotten AirPlay to work. I know it says that you can do it, and it's a suggestion for Mac, particularly if I'm using my iPad, but I'm on my MacBook for Zoom. I've never gotten it to work. Technically you can, but so that's that. If there's no other questions on Facebook, then let's jump into Zoom, because this is a great environment for us to experiment a little bit. So in the Zoom community itself, there's been a rash. How many of you have heard of these Zoom bombs that have been going off? Anybody? Yeah. It's horrific. Some of them have been absolutely awful. Some of them are accidental and unintentional. So there was a story that a friend of mine sent me from Texas of one of our colleagues from college. He was preaching and he was going hard, and like typical Baptist preachers, right? We've got 3 points and an altar call, and he's going pretty hard at it. And he kind of jumps up a little bit as he's preaching, and as he jumped up a bit too much, he showed his boxer shorts instead of the pants. So he had a suit from the waist up and was just not appropriately dressed. And it's like, okay, note to self, when you're used to walking around a platform, you're going to have to learn to adjust when you're on Zoom. And so That was an unintentional Zoom bomb. But I recommend, honestly, don't publicly post your Zoom. This is one of the things that Jay talked about, where Zoom is like, it is a bit more intimidating for people to come in. For communities, there's just no need to publicly do this if you're building a community group, right? Unless it's a real big public function. In that case, use the webinar functionality. The downside of the webinar is you're broadcasting. You're not actually communicating, right? I can see your faces. I can see the nods and yes and all that. But one suggestion that I would always say for your community groups that use Zoom is just send those privately through email or through instant messenger or through WhatsApp. Turn on the waiting room. So when you go to your advanced options, you can enable the waiting room. This allows us to actually access and grant people into the room. So if you're, for example, let's say you're doing a recovery class and you see a name that you don't realize, that you have the opportunity to private message that person, say, hey, I'm sorry, I don't recognize your email or your name. Who are you? And it may be, oh, it's Jane Smith, and we all love Jane, but Jane is using her grandson's iPad because he's over visiting for the weekend or whatever it is, right? And so use the waiting room as a way to just monitor and filter who's coming in. Start with the video and mic of the participants off. That's one way. Again, that can also avoid some embarrassing moments as people come in or come out. Monitor the screen sharing permissions. So one participant can share at a time. That's one great way to make sure that people aren't accidentally sharing things. Nothing's more awkward than you're in the middle of a prayer meeting and somebody's watching Netflix and they accidentally share the Netflix screen that they're watching instead of, the scripture that they're supposed to be reading from. And don't be afraid if you have to silence or to mute or sometimes even remove a user as a last resort if you have to. You don't want to, but that is a function. If you see all the different users, there's that more button. That more button will actually give you the opportunity to make a decision on what you need to do. Now, these are some recommended settings. These are what I would recommend. This is how I personally set up my Zoom for the community and for leading with my team. But I always set my personal meeting ID off when scheduling a meeting. I like to use that only for private things, quick meetings. I always mute my participants. I turn the chat off because unless we need to have the chat function, this is a good environment to have the chat function so you can ask questions. Private chat off, just again, it depends on the context. Sometimes it's good to have the private chat off. Some people, depending on if you're going to have high turnaround or high rotation, every time that pings, it just kind of can annoy people and be distracting. File transfer. So this is really important in a data saturated world. I think the link that I'm sending you is completely valid and it looks fine on my computer, but it could have malware attached to it. I send it, all of a sudden, Jenna opens it up from the Dyson office and now we've got a massive problem. So while file transfers are really cool and it makes sense, from a data protection standpoint, just email the file. Honestly, it works a lot better. Co-host on, because sometimes you want other people to jump in and co-host. They can also record, they can share. And, think through screen sharing to start. Particularly when you're starting a meeting, you want the host to be the one to screen share, not so that nobody else can take over the meeting. Do you allow removed participants to rejoin? I usually just turn that off because if I've had to remove somebody, I don't want them to come back in. And then the waiting room is on. Yeah, you want people to go into the waiting room and then be brought into that meeting when it's time. Also, if you use the same meeting ID, so for example, I made a goofy mistake, thankfully, and I joined at 3:00 Eastern today. And when I did, it gave me this great message that said, sorry, this meeting room is occupied. You're not allowed to be in here right now. So I'm glad I didn't crash in on on Jennifer Bishop Keith's meetings earlier today. Sorry if you saw that notice. But that's why it's an important thing to have the waiting room on. Okay, the top 10 Zoom tips I could give you. This actually comes from a guy named David Sim. David is an aspirant in the Church of Scotland. He comes from an IT background, which I've just been following some of what he's been doing, trying to help the Church of Scotland get online, because I'm really trying to look at the broad kind of global, what's happening around the world with online church. So his advice was kind of very similar. Secure the room. Unlike Facebook Live, Zoom is great because you don't have to fly solo, right? We can all share and communicate. It's not the place for a sing-along. It just doesn't work. They've tried and tried and tried. It is really hard to get Zoom sing-along to work well. And so that's a difficult thing. I'd encourage everybody to mute and then have your one person who's leading worship lead the song out, and then just keep everybody off mute, on mute, excuse me. Do use co-host functions for any speaker that you have, reader, any of that, the limbs that would normally be serving or reading, that's where you'd have them as a co-host. Incorporate Keynote into your PowerPoint, into your presentation time. And mea culpa, I'm guilty of this. Don't overuse it. I really feel convicted on this because I always have way too many slides. It is okay to be a minimalist on Zoom because they can see you, right? Keep it short. Don't turn off, do turn off all the notifications. I've gotten about a dozen emails in the past 50 minutes, and those things keep binging all the time. Your Facebook notifications, your news notifications, your instant message, your WhatsApp, Apple TV, Netflix, all these different things that we have on our devices, they constantly are trying to get our attention. And so I just turn all the notifications off while we're on Zoom. And then don't forget to check your streaming and online music license. This is really important if you are going to do church both on Facebook and on Zoom. You need to make sure that you have the appropriate streaming license. Just because you have a church license for CCLI does not mean you have an online streaming license. Now, we kind of all got a pass at Easter, which was really nice. However, they are now starting to turn attention. And I had a very dear friend of mine who is on the board of CCLI say, hey, because I actually asked them about what we were doing in Jerusalem. And I said, I don't know who the territorial person is for that, or if we can get a pass. And they said, no, we'll give you a pass for the week for Holy Week. But just know that after Easter Sunday, you guys need to go back to making sure you get your online CCLI license. So we kind of all got a pass, but now we got to make sure that we button up. And if you're going to do any music streaming, we don't need the bad press of getting a goofy letter or a fine. That's the last thing any of our churches need right now.
Would you go over it? Well, I couldn't hear number 5.
Sure, absolutely. So number 5, this was to incorporate Keynote or PowerPoints. And then number 6 is, but don't overuse it, which I do all the time. And so I'm sorry for that. You have a lot of information to try to get out. And I know, particularly in a kind of a workshop setting like this, it's appropriate to use a PowerPoint or a Keynote like this, particularly when we're trying to communicate a lot of material. But for a normal group, right, for a discipleship group, it might be, here's the passage of scripture that we're going to read, and then we're going to discuss. That doesn't need to stay on the screen the whole time, right? Or here's our discussion question. Great, ask the question, then turn the screen off and go back to the people to engage. Because I can tell you, even from just speaking, like I love the view of looking at everybody, and the gallery view is great. Gallery view is hilarious sometimes, and I have to catch myself. Our ministry did a prayer and communion service. The ministry I work for, not our ministry, but the ministry that we work for, my wife and I, they did a prayer and communion service with 85 leaders from the Middle East yesterday. And I kid you not, one of our resource partners And I mean, I am positive of this. And he's Baptist, so it's, I guess he kind of gets a pass. We're here at home as Anglicans, so we didn't partake. We just kind of quietly observed. But when it came time for them to hold up the bread, I could have sworn he held up a donut hole. And I started giggling, and I had to turn off my camera because I'm like, he just held up a Krispy Kreme donut hole. Like, that's just not even, like, it was hilarious. It was, So I actually texted his assistant. I go, please tell me that was not a donut hole. He goes, no, it was King's Hawaiian bread. I'm like, okay, good. All right. But here, I'm just chuckling like a little kid over here, and Jen's laughing. She's sitting next to me. So, you got to be careful with the gallery view, but, those things that you can enjoy. So that's kind of my encouragement is use Zoom and use Facebook group. Good, better, best. Facebook group is probably the best. Zoom would be better, and good is the instant message group. It's very, very basic, incredibly basic. There is no high communication. There's no posting and reminders. It's literally just like dialing up a FaceTime call with a bunch of friends. So it's good, but it's not, like I said, good, better, best. So there you go.
Question? So I have the lowest level paid Zoom subscription.
Yeah.
Is the webinar function on that? It's extra. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's extra. And to be honest with you, depending on the size, it doesn't make sense to do the webinar unless you're really if you're committed to Zoom and you really want to grow your Facebook page, okay, there could be an argument to be made. But if everyone's kind of comfortable with Zoom's a good place to do it. And here's why, particularly on a Sunday service, Zoom is really good. So let's say, for example, we wanted to break out after Sunday service. So we funneled, at Winchester, we funneled everybody out and we went into the group. Is everybody used a Zoom room? Have you guys broken up into that yet? Okay.
I haven't done it myself, but I was put into a group the other day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, it's a bit weird because it takes about a minute and you have to kind of hit it twice. So you say, I want to break everybody up into rooms, and then it'll tell you how many rooms, how many people do you want in a room? I want 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever it is. And then it will automatically break them up into a room. And then when you recall them, it takes about a minute. So it's kind of, everyone kind of cycles out of the room and then they have to cycle back in. So you do need to be prepared for that, because a lot of times it's like, hey, we're going to break this up and we're going to just divide you up into rooms. Now you can assign those, by the way. So it doesn't have to be random, but if it is random, you always want to make sure that you have a discussion leader or somebody in there, right? But as they break out, I've come in a lot of times where leaders have already begun to talk and they've not realized that, half of the audience is not back in the room yet. They're still coming back in. So it's always good to have filler or just make small talk until you notice, okay, everybody's back in the room. Great. Glad we're all back. Hope that was great. Glad you got to see each other. So that's how we do on our virtual coffee hour, because we found it's too crazy when we've got 40 families all trying to communicate and talk on Zoom. So we just break everybody up into groups of 5, and it's totally random. And so that's been kind of neat. And then we'll do that for about 20 minutes, and then we do it, come back, Patrick will say a couple of things, and then we break back up into another group. And
just to be on that same topic, you, as a host, you can actually pop into the groups.
Yes.
If you choose, which was a great, cool feature. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? What other questions?
Now, I have a question on the CCLI license. So we do have a CCLI streaming license, which my understanding is that my musicians can sing a song from
Mhm.
CCLI, and I can stream that. But my question is, what if I just go to YouTube and find a video of somebody singing a song? Can I stream that?
So this is a technical gray area. Uh, you are, as a church, doing that. You're still broadcasting the song. So whether your people sing it, or you're broadcasting the song, or you're playing a CD or an MP3 of it, because it's from the church page, it is still legally the church broadcasting or performing or causing that song to be performed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I was on a call early on when they said that they were taking certain ones down that had done that, though.
Yeah.
They were actually pulling the whole YouTube down if they had done something like that.
I did it a few weeks ago from my home. I used YouTube audio. I didn't broadcast the video, and a warning.
You did. You got a warning for it. Yeah.
But it was a little slap.
Yep.
Well, Justin, help us. What do we do?
Responding hours.
Sorry.
What's that now?
No, sorry. That was my digital assistant. Remember, I have this German woman in my computer that yells at me every half hour. Sorry. So what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, what Father John presented you, he did. What he needs is help. What does he do?
Got it. So if you have the CCLI license, as long as you have the streaming license, you're fine. You can't, because you have the license. So whether it's from a video, or it's from an audio, or an MP3, or a CD, or off your iPhone, or somebody live, doesn't matter. As long as the church has the license, you're golden. You're good. If you don't have the CCLI license, and so, like, for example, when Father Bill got the warning, if Father Bill could say, wait, I have the CCLI license, here's what a lot of churches are doing. They're dropping it in their lower thirds. And this is what I'd recommend you do for your Sunday services. Pin it at the top of your message and say, this is our church CCLI license number. And you just pin that right at the top. That way, whenever somebody comes into your live stream, they'll see that, and our monitors out very, very clear. It's a great way to protect.
How do you do that?
Did you guys get all that, or did I drop out?
You froze a little bit.
How do you do that? You said pin something. You're using language that needs unpacking.
Sorry.
Yeah, lower third.
Upper third. What?
Yeah.
Got it. So, okay, let's say, for example, you're doing a Facebook Live. On the Facebook Live, what I would do is in the chat, or in the comment section, I would write the comment that says, the name of your church, CCLI license number, and then the license number. And then you can actually pin that comment to the top of your thread.
How?
And there's a button. I'll just show you. Hang on a second. Let me pull up, and that's a great question. All right, let me share. So let's say, for example, I go to my Facebook. All right. And let me look up. I'll just show you kind of what we did with Winchester. Okay, and so we went live yesterday and did a worship service. Just kind of a night of worship. And in the chat, or in the comment section,
are. Look.
There we go.
Look.
It's happening.
Look, there we are live, and here we are live.
So where do we post it?
Glad that you're here with us.
So let's say, for example, that we are going to write a post.
More specific, Jordan has planned some awesome music for us tonight. We'll have some prayer time.
This is a post.
She's going to open us with some
And then
prayers and some words.
in the options, you can, in the options section, if you're an administrator of the account, you're able to actually pin that to the top. So when we go to, let's say Christchurch, that's an easy one to show. We can go to our stream from Sunday. I'm sorry, the internet is so lagging over here. Okay, so we can go to our stream from Sunday. There's Deacon Aaron. Okay. I can hit welcome to service. There we go. And then we can pin this. Oh, come on. It's in the, when you hit the right and you can pin the notice, the comment in. So the share section, I'm not sure why our internet is dropping out, but you can pin your comment to the top of your thread. And so that makes it that it's actually the top one. And that's really through the comments that you leave in. And so once you post it, you're going to right click on the side and then you'll be able to hit post, pin, and that pins it to the top. The other thing is when we talk about a lower third, so see how this right here has the lower third? So that's using Streamer. There's a number of different apps that people can use, but at Christchurch and at Winchester, we use Streamer. That app does have a cost, but it does allow us to do things like drop a lower third or drop our, the giving page, put the logo of the church in, put our dates or information. Also, the lower third that we drop in there pretty frequently, and about every 5 minutes, we'll drop in the license number as a lower third. So when we talk about lower third, that's what we mean. It's that bottom third bit of the screen. So there are a lot of different ways to do that. The easiest way is to pin it. Second most difficult, that's not really difficult. The second way to do it is using Streamer and some type of lower third generator. The third thing that I've seen some churches do is put it like, what was it? I forget which parish it was now, but they actually had it on the desk. So it was he had the guitar and he's just kind of leading some worship, and in a frame on the desk was CCLI number, and it was just right there on the desk, and it worked. They kind of made their own homemade lower third. The main thing is that it's out there, and you don't ever want to be challenged with it. But as long as you have it, you're fine.
Justin, when you talk about best practices, when you say them verbally, I think I understand. When you show me a picture of what you're looking at and showing me like, what's the best front page? What's the best, give us some samples of things that you'd say, this is a really great version of what somebody has done. Do you have that kind of ability to do that on Zoom and Facebook with all of its various expressions?
So on Facebook, yes. It's really, I can point you to a couple of ones and we can pull those up here, and I can highlight out a couple of really well done pages that would give some good feedback on that. So let me go back over
You don't
here.
have to do it today.
Okay.
I don't want to hijack the meeting. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
that
So-
I think all of us are at different stages of understanding. We all can say, "Oh, I understand what you're saying." That's a far cry from being able to do anything about it. And
Got it.
if you want us to actually improve something, showing us what you're talking about, and just like you did, you move the cursor to the different thing to click it, and that's how you get that done.
Perfect.
Those things make it more real for us, at least in my view. Maybe everybody on the call would disagree, but that's what I'm thinking.
So next week, would it be helpful if I came back with 3 or 4 different really good examples of both pages and groups that really have their act together, that are great examples for you to look at? We can walk through what makes these pages work, what makes their engagement a little bit higher than some of the others. I'm seeing nods from everybody. So
Raise your
yeah,
hand if that works.
great.
Are you talking Facebook pages or website pages or both?
So we could do both, but ideally Facebook pages and groups, and looking at kind of the front door, so to speak, of those and seeing how they look. And then, yeah, we could do web pages as well. There are some really good, tips on better engagement for websites, depending on what you're trying to communicate, right? So, and that really goes back to what is the goal of your website. I'm amazed at the number of churches that, they say, well, we haven't done our website. We haven't touched our website up in 10 years, in 5 years. Those things need to be up to date and caught up. And it doesn't take a lot. That's the thing, is there's some really great tools like Wix or like Clover, which is designed, actually Clover is designed for churches, and they have a ton of great platforms that are really good for churches. They've incorporated giving. You can connect it to CCB and Church Builder and all these other things. So, and that's $20 a month for an excellent looking website. So it just depends on kind of what's out there, but I'd be glad to run through some of those as well. And be a bit more practical.
Can you answer that question about improving music quality as it gets streamed out over Zoom, especially? Yes. So if it's embedded in a PowerPoint and you click to that slide and it starts, how can we get it to sound really, really good?
Okay, so the first thing is when you go to the share screen, you'll see the share computer sound. And then there's also an optimize screen share for video clip.
Okay.
When you click those two together, so you need not just the computer sound, but there's actually a button that says optimize screen share for video clip.
Got it.
That has to be selected. Otherwise, what it's going to do is it's going to run it through as if it's a normal microphone output.
Right. So it'll get processed and suppressed and all that crap.
That's right. Yeah. So you want it to be.
Crap. I didn't really say that word on this. I didn't say that. I guess I did. I was reverting back to my Baptist days, I guess. I don't know.
It's okay.
So, Justin, Father Bill was really having microphone trouble, and Deacon Steve Elder is on, and I think he's responsible for some of the tech at Christ the King. Do you guys want to troubleshoot that microphone problem? Deacon Steve, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Yeah, just listening to what was being said about the narrowing of the bandwidth after Easter, that would pretty much cover what we saw last Sunday, because it was just a lot of static.
What type of microphone are you using?
It was an iPhone 6.
Okay, yeah. One of the things that you may want to consider, and sorry, I'm in the middle of packing. That's why there's no bookcase behind me. We're actually in the middle of a move in the midst of Corona. but Rode, R-O-D-E, makes an excellent lapel mic that you can actually use the plug-in and connect it to an iPhone. And a lot of times when I do an iPhone video, that's actually the mic that I use, because the native microphone, unless you're really within about maybe 2 feet of the camera, it's really hard to get excellent sounding quality. So what I use is the Rode, and it's just a lapel mic that plugs straight into my iPhone. Awesome, awesome, awesome audio quality. And that microphone is anywhere, you can get it on Amazon anywhere from $60 to $89. Just depends on the seller and the sales. But RODE, and it's a Rode lapel mic. Now you do have to use the converter. So it's got it's a normal 8mm audio jack, but you can get the converter for your iPhone and plug it straight in. And those are, $10 to get the converter piece. So that may be something to consider trying. And I guarantee your audio quality will dramatically improve just by nature of having that.
But that's
Okay, I've already done all of that, but the problem is that the microphone inside the iPhone is still on. So you've actually got 2 inputs of audio.
Oh, okay. So then and you're streaming it to Facebook, or you're going to Zoom?
I was using Zoom at
Facebook.
the time.
You were using Zoom at the time. Okay. So when you use Zoom on your phone, you need to select the audio input, because Zoom will automatically default to the native built-in mic. And you have to go, if you're plugging in an external mic into your iPhone, you actually in Zoom have to go into the settings and tell it which microphone you actually want to pull from.
Okay, I hadn't seen that, so I'll look at that.
Yeah. And it's when you go down in Zoom, particularly, you see that where the microphone, the mute button is, if you click to the right of that little chevron pointing up, you'll see where it says select microphone. And it will give you built-in microphone, aggregate device, whatever your different microphone inputs and outputs are. So you can do the same thing for your speaker, and then always test them. So if you're going to change it, the microphone I'm using now is actually a Yeti Studio mic. It's using a USB cable, and you don't see it, but that's it up there. And I've got it hovering right above me. And because of the way the mic is set up, it gives great, decent audio quality without having to have the mic right in front of me. And ironically, because I'm talking to my computer screen right here, it actually kind of acts almost as a little bit of a sound booth in and of itself, because I'm speaking directly to it. It's bouncing off the screen and it's hitting the mic up here. And so it's another way to work. And those Yeti mics, the total mic setup for this, $25 for the mic stand. The Yeti mic was $69. I got it on sale on Amazon. So for less than $100, and it's podcast and broadcast quality.
Those Yetis are omnidirectional too, right?
These are last week's notes, aren't they, on the slides? These are on last week's slides?
They are, correct.
Okay. So Deacon Steve, go to last week's teaching that you did, and you'll find information about those products.
Okay, thank you.
Is that on the website?
It is.
Okay, thanks.
What else is helpful to you? So everybody's got great sound quality and everybody's got great video. Nobody needs help with any of that anymore.
Not.
Okay, so that's what we want to do is help you at your point of need. So if you take one action, next week we'll change the conversation. But getting you what you right now at your point of need. You have for Justin, fire away.
Yeah, I don't know if this has been brought up in the past or not, but as we transition, or as we get ready to transition back to the place where we regularly meet, there is no Wi-Fi there.
Okay.
And so I need to know how to set up a hotspot.
Perfect. So there is a couple of really unique options. The first is your cell phone carrier probably has a hotspot box that you can get that will be an additional charge, obviously, to your account, but it's a mobile hotspot device. It's a box. Usually it's the size of a small wallet. It'll fit in your pocket right there. There's one right there. Jenna's holding one. So those are really, really handy, and they're great. The signal, because I live out in the boonies of Virginia. So I am out about an hour from Dulles in an area called Front Royal, Virginia. I'm set off about probably 200 yards from the road. So we don't actually have internet here. They didn't run any cables out here. So the internet that I'm using is actually 4 SIM cards that are bonded together into one box to give me 5G internet. And that's through AT&T, and it's called Unlimited Data, is the name of the company I use. It's $89 a month, and it gives me literally unlimited Wi-Fi. Sometimes the signal is really great. Sometimes it's a bit choppy, but normally I don't have a problem unless there's a storm. Now, the caveat is you need to be within 3 miles of a cell phone tower. So that's the downside. The other thing is depending on your data. So I have 2 phones, one that's ministry phone, and then I have one that's my personal phone. I have really low data on my personal phone, but on my ministry phone, that actually has unlimited data. And so I always keep that available as an emergency backup, and I can tether and actually get really good 5G LTE off of my phone to run video. And so as long as I'm not trying to do anything, I'm not trying to stream or share a film or a video, it's just a normal Zoom call or a Facebook Live, I have normally great signal off my iPhone. And so those are a couple of things to look through, is look at, your data package and see if you can do a tether. The most cost efficient, though, for you would probably be to go ahead and do a hotspot box. And again, I would just check with your telco provider. And you may want to mention that it's for a church, because they may actually have nonprofit pricing available. So that's something to really consider.
One more big question. Who's got a big question you want something to answer with? Justin, you sent out we've published the MENA Collective training, digital church development training, you said was a really great training, but it's being offered free through May. Do you want to give us a little commercial announcement? It's MI2 or something. You sent that out a couple weeks ago.
Sorry, it froze up on me here. So if anybody asked the big question, I missed it.
No, I'm asking you about the training that you said was free through May, but that it was really great training. Can you give us just a brief commercial announcement about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So MII.global, Media Impact International, MII.global. So the foundation or the organization I work for is based in Southern California, called Strategic Resource Group. And what we do is we actually provide funding for the top 150 ministries throughout the Middle East and North Africa. And for any of our church partners that do anything online, we actually require them to go through MII for training. They have amazing social media training, and their teams are just dynamic. I mean, they pull from really some of the most successful online ministries in the country, and it's leaders from those online ministries. So Jay, who was on one of the trainings that we did from Saddleback, Jay is one of the trainers. We do training together in Lebanon. The team is really, really, really practical. So the main thing with the social media training that MII does is, how do you know who to actually engage on social media? How do you know how to get them? Do you know the persona of the person that you're trying to minister online, and how best can you minister to that persona?
Right. This goes to the issue of how you're going to do evangelism, utilizing the platforms you're working so hard to learn how. One of the main concerns I have for all of us is the extent to which we're focused so inwardly that we're only relating or primarily relating to the caught, to the found. Now, the found need attention, clearly. But if they get all of our attention, then the church loses its missional edge. And season of online learning where we figure out how to increase our profile so that those who are seeking or those who are hurting and need that we can reach, we can find a way to do that through online means. So this particular training gives you some skills about how to think about that and to orient to it, because you're really casting a net.
Yeah. There's this great analogy of, there's so many things we could learn from fishermen, right? The fisherman knows exactly what type of rod, reel, hook, bait, bob to use to go catch the particular fish. And the real fishermen, they can tell you exactly what kind of spinner and why we need this type of line and all of that. And they get really, really deep into it. And it kind of hit me one time. I'm like, man, I wish I knew as much about reaching the lost as fishermen do about finding fish. Well, this is what that does. So the whole training at MII actually helps us know what rod, what reel, what tackle, what hook, what do we need to use to go find that one that we're trying to reach. And the reality is, it's not just finding the one. There are thousands just like that one. And so once we know the persona of who we're trying to reach, then we can actually create a program to engage not just the stay-at-home mom or the retiree or whoever it is that you're particularly trying to engage, but everybody who looks like them on social media that are within earshot of your ministry. And what a tremendous opportunity. The other thing is, I know some of you are in areas where you have snowbirds. So particularly in Arizona, right? My dad's in Phoenix, and half the neighborhood's gone like half the year where he lives. Well, wouldn't it be great if you can continue to minister to the same people even when they go back up north? Mm-hmm. And one of those ways to be able to do that is through the online ministry. And so, staying connected, finding those people, keeping them engaged, even though they may view your parish as their home church, but they're going to go see their grandkids for the other half of the year. So just a tremendous opportunity.
So if you would like to learn more about how to do that, that's the training. I'll put it in the e-letter we kick out tomorrow. I think we're doing it tomorrow, right, Jenna? Just go to that and click on it. It's expensive training that is made available for you without financial cost at this point. For free.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, if I were to schedule a training, let's say, and bring, a couple of churches together to do that, normally for me as the foundation, it costs me about $5,000 to bring that training in per church, because it's not just the training. So you do the online training, but then there's the opportunity for follow-up and questions and engagement. And so you actually get a lot of consulting out of that. And they do it because they genuinely love the ministry. And so it's just a great opportunity to connect and learn from some of the best out there. And what a great privilege just to be able to do that and just give it away. So that's what they're doing, and kudos to them for doing it.
Justin, we're at the end of our time. Thank you for.
Can I just do one thing? It's right here in your e-letter that you guys all got. This was from last Friday. So here was the Zoom link for today's. Here's the link down here, the blue, for the last week's training, just for those of you who want to know. And then here's the MII, the digital training, and you can enroll by clicking down at the bottom. So.
Thank you, Jenna. We'll renew that in the e-letter tomorrow. So quick takeaways so we can kind of see what the fruit of this is. We're trying to massage where there's a need. What have you gained today? Just try to give Justin some feedback. Where's the benefit?
For me, the little path through Facebook was very helpful. That's where my learning curve is at the Facebook level right now.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, and those slides are there to go back and review again.
Mhm.
Good. Excellent. Somebody else?
I got my sound question answered, and I learned about CCLI streaming. So that's my next web.
Great. Excellent. That's a leg up. Who else?
It's like with anything else tech related, you get comfortable at a certain level, but then you find out that there's a lot more that you can do with what you've got and the tools. And so it's just exciting to see what else we can do with it.
Excellent. Good. Anybody else?
It's just like one-stop place to learn things, and we learn what we don't know, but there is a resource to pursue it and grow, and even small churches can use it.
Absolutely. Very good. Somebody else?
Bill here, I found it very helpful. The CCLI streaming, like Dean Bill said, and the Facebook groups to remind us of that use was very, very helpful. I'm still confused as far as the Zoom webinars and all that. And the next question I want to address is, if we are able to go back to our church buildings, if we're using them now, they're set up as small studios around the altar or something. How are we going to move back so that we can maintain that inclusivity while meeting the needs of a congregation?
Excellent question.
Mhm.
Excellent question.
Right.
Who else got a question? What can we scratch next week?
The question that Bill Gandenberger just asked is an excellent question. I'd love to hear that one.
Yeah. How do you, and maybe not even, how do you pull out, or maybe you push it to the side? What's the best for viewing? Where's the best positioning for viewing while doing all of that?
Well,
Yeah,
viewing, sound, lighting.
Yeah, viewing, sound, like all of that to then incorporate people.
Well, you add the complication that your input's coming from different places. You've got the choir, you've got the altar, you've got the readers, things have to move around somehow.
Completely.
And
Yeah.
it's
We are
not as
now
complicated if you're mic'd. It's not as complicated as you think, but there is a workflow that needs to happen. So
Okay.
yeah, we can
That would
absolutely
be
work
really
through
helpful.
Excellent. What do you guys think about show and tell about some of the best ways to integrate website, Facebook, group things? Okay, I've got a couple people saying that's a good idea. Okay. All right, we'll work on that some more. We're trying to put these at 3, Father John, and hope that you can get there. We put this on a day where I know you're going to be on again, off again with work, but we're trying to get this, but we will record it in case you're tied up. If we do record it and you've got questions, those are emails. Kick those to Justin so that we can keep focusing on the things that actually help you.
So will this broadcast be available to people who couldn't come today, and they could see it on the website?
Always on the website. And if you, Tom, if you would just take the e-letter I send you and click those links, all these things are there.
Okay.
So the e-letter I send out, it takes you right to the items that are current. So this one will be referenced.
Yep. And it's always under resources online. I think it's called online church or church online. Church online under the resource tab on the website.
You guys are just so cool.
Well, we're trying to help. Go ahead.
Can we get your email, Justin?
Yes. So the easiest way is, I'll give you my personal one, JTMURFF, JTMurff@gmail.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and wind up so that Justin can get some some food, and he can figure out what he's going to do with all those books that he packed up. Where'd the bookcase go? Is that God?
No, it's in a truck sitting outside the house. So we're headed to Williamsburg.
I was going to say your lighting's horrible.
It
Yeah,
is
that's right. Who'd like to pray for Justin as he and his family make the move? Somebody just raise your hand and you guys.
Can I add another prayer request? Not just the move and that the house goes through and all that, but on the 14th, I will be joining the ordination committee in the Diocese of the Mid-Atlantic. So be praying through that as we go through all that process. I appreciate it.
Amen. Who's going to do that?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Dear Lord God, we thank you for Justin and the calling you have put on his life. We thank you that you have given him this wonderful ministry through the MENA Collective and various other avenues. We pray for your blessing and wisdom as they move. We pray against any logistical challenges, that there would be no accidents, that everything would go smoothly. And then as he goes before the ordination committee, we pray that that would go well as well. We pray that your shalom would fill him and his family during this season of transition. And all this we lift up in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yeah. We also pray for this discernment committee that's happening at the diocesan level, for Bishop John and those who are providing oversight. Lord, guide our brother through that conversation and help everyone to hear your voice as you lead them to your will. And with that addendum, we do pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Bless you all. Yeah.